I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency of West Palm Beach. The date is August 9th, 2021, and the time is 4 p.m. Madam City Clerk, do we have any comments from the public on non-agenda items? We'll go to the board now. Commissioner Lambert, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. No comments today.
Commissioner Schoaf?
No comments, thank you.
And Commissioner Warren, any comments? All right, Mr. Rugg, are there any additions, deletions, reorganization of the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Very good. We'll head right into the agenda. The first item is a presentation of the draft fiscal year 2022 Community Redevelopment Agency budget for the Downtown City Center CRA and the Northwood Pleasant City CRA, and the preliminary budget for the West Palm Beach Downtown Development Authority. Ms. Justice.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Allison Justice, Deputy Director, CRA. I'm going to start with the Northwood Pleasant City CRA and then move on to the Downtown City Center CRA, and then Rafael Clemente is going to give a brief presentation on the DDA's preliminary budget. I know Mr. Rugg's spoken with most of you about the CRA's preliminary budget. I'm going to go through where our TIF numbers, what our TIF numbers look like, and what our proposed projects are for the year. I will highlight really what's changed. There's a lot of projects that are ongoing, some budgets that haven't changed. I'm going to highlight kind of what has been in the pipeline that is new for this year. So, for the Northwood Pleasant City CRA District, I'll give an overview, summary of the revenue and expenditures, and then a summary of the projects as well. Just to reiterate, for the funding sources for the CRA, the tax increment for the Downtown City Center is approximately, it's 14.128, I guess, per $1,000 of taxable value. That includes the DDA's mill. $2.2 million for the DDA, $25.3 million from the City of West Palm Beach, and $14.5 million from Palm Beach County. Also then from the Northwood Pleasant City, our funding and structure is $13 per $1,000 of taxable value, $1.7 million from the county, and $3 million from the City of West Palm Beach. Obviously, our expenditures have to be within the boundaries of the CRA in accordance with Chapter 163. Here's a map of the Northwood Pleasant City CRA map that includes Curry Corridor, Pleasant City, Northwood Village, the Industrial District, and Broadway Corridor. So for this year, we are estimating a tax increment of approximately $4.6 million. We have seen an increase in both districts of taxable values. 6% increase over fiscal year 2021. You'll see in downtown it's a little over 8%. This is, if you remember us doing the presentation last year, we talked about how COVID could potentially impact the taxable values. Obviously, we did not realize that here in West Palm Beach, so we have seen an increase. We were conservative in our initial estimates, and we've gotten some real numbers now, so we're looking at a 6% increase. So our total estimated sources of funding would be $7.7 million, almost 7.8. And then the uses are broken down into our debt service. That was from our 2005 bond that we're still repaying. The city cost allocation that we pay for engineering, legal services, financial services within the city. Personnel, which at this point includes Mr. Rugg's position as well as the contracted RMA positions. Our innovative policing budget on the north end, which is some overtime detail and some different projects that the police are undertaking in the Northwood Broadway corridor, operations, and our target area initiatives. And that's what we'll go through as the target area initiatives in the next few slides here. I know that you all were here, and I know Commissioner Warren wasn't here last year, but you all that were here, we kind of showed the slide for our budget presentation last year, just to reiterate the bond payment, the $1.6 million bond payment that we are paying back, what that went towards. The remaining is going towards the Curry Park Phase 2. That bond has been expended. We're now in the process of paying that back. So these are some of the items that were funded through that bond. Within the Pleasant City target area, I'm going to highlight a couple of items. One was the Blum Park Vision. The CRA undertook a visioning exercise with the community for Blum Park to see how we could potentially make the park more user-friendly, getting more eyes on the park, adding some potential items of housing, and working with HCD, working with the Housing Authority to try and look at what that could be. After we completed that initial visioning process, we realized that some of these Housing Authority units have some restrictions on them. We're going to have to probably retain someone to help us look into if we want to move around some of those housing authorities and working with HUD. So that's a consultant that we're looking to help HCD bring on and continue to reimagine Blum Park. And also looking at some of the streetscape in Pleasant City. For example, Lilac Avenue that has some new houses built on it. The street there could potentially use a little love, and there's some other streets that we want to look at. So we need to just start the process of looking at some of these streets within the neighborhood of Pleasant City. The Curry Corridor target area, obviously this is, our main source of funding is going towards the Curry design. You'll see throughout the Northwood Pleasant City budget, the majority of the funding is going to Broadway and to the Curry Corridor, and this is for the remainder of the design. In that presentation, we broke down 3 years of funding. This is the funding for year 2. Northwood Village target area, we have the incentive for the anchor site that will be owed to the developer once permits are issued and paid for. That's a major expenditure in Northwood Village. Obviously, private security marketing initiatives are a very big part of the Northwood Village budget. The industrial park, if you've been to the industrial area, there are some new businesses in there. There's some new music and art businesses that have located. We've allocated some more dollars for incentives there. We feel like this could be, there could be some businesses that may require some CRA assistance, and we'd love to help those businesses get up and running. Again, the Broadway target area, the CRA's focus really is going to be towards land acquisition along the Broadway corridor. We've already began looking at different portions of land to be able to assemble and really take a foot forward in the redevelopment of Broadway corridor. And then other target area, these are, items such as property lot maintenance, landscape maintenance throughout Northwood Village and Pleasant City, and then, our property utilities, insurance, et cetera. So with that, if you have any questions on...
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Rube.
So, first off, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share the budget with you, prior to adoption. And, this is sort of the opportunity to make any tweaks that you all would like to the budget. So the budget that we've put together does include quite a bit of input relative to what we've heard throughout the last 12 months. And whether it's individual commissioners, city administration, residents, the CRA advisory board, across the board, if we've heard one consistent message, it's that it's time to really start putting some intentional actions in place for the Broadway corridor. So that, when you combine that with Curry Park, those two areas are taking the lion's share of the budget for this year. And we're going to start putting some things in motion that really reflect what we've been hearing from a variety of stakeholders on what they would like to see. In addition to the land acquisitions for Broadway, which we've beefed up quite a bit, as Allison had mentioned, we also intend to do some marketing and some promotion initiatives around highlighting it to bankers and brokers and doing things like that. So Really, the budget that you see before you today for the Northwood Pleasant City area reflects quite a bit of input that we've heard from the community at large.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Any questions, comments, board members? Okay, you may proceed.
All right, with that, I'll move on to the Downtown City Center CRA. Once again, I'll just go through a summary of the revenues and expenditures and then the projects. For the downtown area, we do have funding that we carry forward. A lot of this carry forward are in projects already. So these are things that we've already got allocated to specific projects. The bond carry forward, as you can see, it's at 13 million. This was a almost $80 million bond, so we've expended a lot of that. That was obviously with the Clematis Streetscape, Banyan Boulevard, Tamarind. So we are spending that bond money. And tax increment, again, at an 8.1% increase of downtown. We do have some, there's 2 items on the agenda tonight for TDR sales. You can see that comes in as income as well as some leases that we have for total estimated sources of $70 million. So for the uses, again, our debt service, mainly from the latest, the 2019 bond, personnel, city costs, these are broken out in the same way that Northwood Pleasant City was. Innovative policing has increased this year. We have increased the innovative policing budget. Our tax increment split is with our developers. A majority of that is for the City Place partnership that we have for their infrastructure. And then the DDA work plan, which Rafael Clemente will go over his work plan after I finish here. And then the waterfront events and operation. This includes landscape maintenance along the waterfront as well as the events along the waterfront as well, and the CRA contribution to that. We do have, you'll see there's a reserve for future projects of $2 million right now. That'll be modified as we get to the final numbers, but that's what we're estimating right now. The Northwest target area obviously is a lion's share of the budget for the downtown city center, and it has for several years. This map you've seen over the years. We've completed some of these projects. We're still working on some of these projects and continuing to move them forward. These have been on the work plan for several years, and we're continuing to move them forward. As far as new 2022 priorities, one of the things, as Chris had mentioned, that we had heard from the community is through safety, lighting. We are working with our city's engineering department to improve lighting along Douglas and Henrietta. It may be Douglas first, potentially Henrietta in the next fiscal year. We'll have to see where the costs come out, as well as property acquisition and renovation. Some of these projects, again, have been in the works. 822 North Tamarind, 1031 North Sapadilla are properties that we own, that we do have final designs and final costs to rehabilitate them, so we're moving forward with both of those projects. And I can always come back to this if you have specific questions, but... as far as our major projects, the Mickens Moore property, which is the fourth Envision at the bed and breakfast, this will be in design phase. We are working on an RFP to design that project right now. We do have funding in the bond for phase 1 of construction. That won't be the total amount of construction on that property. However, we do have some money in the bond for that. The West Palm Beach Center for Arts and Technology, again, the commitment that we've made in the bond. We also have $150,000 for implementation support that was in the NCAT contract. It's going to be shifted over to the West Palm Beach Center contract. That'll be coming forward in probably a month to you all. Heart and Soul Park, we have funded ongoing maintenance for the park. That was one of the concerns when we built the park was it going to be maintained? We do have landscape contractors as well as trash cleanup in the park now. We have funding for a sculpture, and we also have funding for private security in the future as well for the park. So, and then the Sunset Lounge. Mr. Rugg had mentioned when he brought forward the amendment that there are other items for the Sunset Lounge as far as operations, grand opening, things like that. So this was budgeted for the Sunset Lounge for total uses of $21 million. Now, with that, I'm going to, just a couple of items on the Historic Northwest while we're on that topic. The community outreach, we are going to schedule a meeting with the community to present the budget between now and final approval. You know, if there's anything to be addressed at that point. The budget is based from a lot of the community meetings that we've already had at the quarterly meetings and what we heard. Things we heard: increase in innovative policing, trash and litter, programming of the park, lighting, et cetera. So these are the items that you saw on the budget that we've added, that we've heard from the community. Also, I know one of the questions when the Sunset Lounge came forward was, how does the cost of the Sunset Lounge impact other projects? Luckily, due to the increase in taxable value, there wasn't a significant impact to the budget. However, there were a couple of items that we were thinking about moving forward on projects that we shifted from. Rosemary Avenue from Clematis to Banyan Boulevard, we are looking at starting the design to finish that phase of the project to connect Banyan Boulevard to Clematis Street with the new designs of both of those streets. We can fund the design, but not the construction at this point. So it's kind of one of those that it would be shifted back a year to actually fund the construction. And there was some funding taken out of land acquisition line items. So those were really the items where the Sunset Lounge may have had an impact on the budget. For Clear Lake, in the bond also we have Tamarind Avenue streetscape. This is for proposed stoplight, at Datura that's going through the process right now for approval on that. So we're working with engineering department on that, as well as the Palm Tran improvements on the TOD site that we've been working on as well. And then Brailsford Park, I know that you all are familiar with the NORA project on Brailsford Park. We are budgeting an infrastructure grant in that area as well. We have not finalized this, but that is what we're anticipating for next fiscal year. The downtown core, one of the changes in the downtown core is we're going to look at the waterfront, and we've been discussing a playground and some modifications to the waterfront for several years. We need to probably move forward some designs, and we have put it in our budget to move that forward as well this year, as well as, again, a design of Rosemary Avenue from Clematis Street to Banyan Boulevard. Other than that, these numbers, the 314 Clematis, this is a carry forward, so these aren't adding anything. This was an approved from last year. We don't know what the number is going to look like, so I know Mr. Rugg will come forward when you have final numbers on that to modify the budget when we do have that. Again, the DDA target area, I'm going to have Raphael come up here in a minute. That's their work plan. Again, we give 1 mil back to them, and then we also match that mil from the CRA budget as well. So they get a total of 2 mils from the CRA. Other target area, I just wanted to point out, just because we've shifted some areas here, what used to be called the Clean and Green Team, which was housed under our Northwest budget, is now just under other target area because they are cleaning in other areas besides the historic Northwest, so it just encompasses the entire CRA. We're also funding some additional funding to Public Works for additional trash cans, code enforcement officer, so that's going directly to Public Works for neighborhood cleanliness, and then $600,000 is for new technology for the police department. So those are again our new items within the budget. And before I ask Raphael to come up, I can answer any questions on the downtown city center budget.
Yeah, we do have a couple. Can you go back to, I think it was your second slide, there was a line item for Hamburger Haven, I think it was $500,000. What are we doing with that?
So Gina Baker can answer that a little bit better, but we have been working with Hamburger Haven for a while. We've been working with Alfonso Hernandez. They own a property right beside to improve that property. The challenge has been coming up with the appropriate funding and what would be the appropriate funding from the CRA. I know there was some county money potentially available, so Gina's been working, and as well as TDR sales from that property because it is historic. So I think where we have been is we have some design, we are working on the funding, and at this point we're offering $500,000 from the CRA in our
But you're
budget.
anticipating that it's going to be?
We're anticipating that. We do not have any final numbers on that.
All right, okay. Then the other question I had was on West Palm Beach CAT. I know we have some bond proceeds that we're setting aside for that. Do we have any idea where they are with fundraising, planning? What's going on?
I do have a fundraising, we get monthly fundraising reports, and we can certainly share that with the commissioners. Chris, we can certainly share that. I know they're working some large donors. What we've committed to right now is we are working with the Salvation Army on the land, and we are also working on securing an architect for the design. So that's where we are with them right now. We have to do an amendment to their contract. And like I said, I'm happy to share the fundraising information with you, but.
Okay, and so we kick in that 150 after they raise 150, correct?
We kick in the 150 is when they start programming. So in the fall, they've anticipated they are doing programming. They're working with PAL. They're going to be in the PAL Center, and they're going to be having classes, after-school classes. So they're doing some programming. They have gotten a match for that. They've gotten I believe a $50,000 Quantum Foundation grant, and they are anticipating starting. This $150,000, they have to be programming for at least 90 days before we will. So it's not a before anything happens, it's after it starts. They start programming, we will kick in the 150. The $5 million will go both towards design and construction, so that's the total contribution from the CRA. So if we pay $1 million for design, there's $4 million left in the CRA. And we'll have stipulations on how much they have to raise before our money is in at all.
Okay, great. Commissioner Warren, I know you had a question or two.
Hi, Allison. Can you go back to the slide that talks about the carry forward and TDRs, please?
The which one?
Carry forward?
Yes.
Okay. Those two balances look pretty significant to me, and I would love to know if you can provide more detail. And I don't know that you need to provide this specific amount of detail in this meeting, but what I'm looking for is when some of these items were added to this carry forward balance, and are there items in here that exceed 5 years that have not been started or aren't working on? That we aren't
Right.
working on?
Well, per statute, they can't go longer than 3 years without being. So nothing should be over 3 years. The bond, I can certainly provide details of what the carry forward is. Just so you're aware off the top of my head, things like when I said 314 Clematis that has $3 million, that's part of the carry forward. So this was part of a budgeted amount that's carried forward to this year that hasn't been spent yet. Banyan Boulevard Phase 2 has not yet been spent, but it's still sitting in the bond. That's a carry forward. The $5 million for the CAT is part of that carry forward. So we can certainly provide those details.
Thank you very much. And if you would go back to that slide
Yep,
again.
sorry.
No problem. Okay, can you talk a little bit about the TDR sales income?
Yes. So you'll have two presentations this evening on properties that are owned by the CRA, the Sunset Lounge, Heart and Soul Park. We also includes 1031 North Sapodilla. There's several properties that are owned by the CRA that we've had private brokers working for developers that are looking for development rights. And because these are historic structures, we're able to sell those development rights as the owner of the property. And we have to improve the property. The rules are the property has to be improved. So we couldn't sell all of the park TDRs until we completed the park, same with the Sunset Lounge. So that's what we're in the process of, completing some of these projects, and then we can sell the rights to them because the property's already been improved. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Schoaf.
Thank you, Mayor. And Allison, just to clarify what you said there, when we were looking at the carry forward balance, I know in some of our previous work sessions on the city side, we talked about commitments that the city had made and how we account for those. So in your carry forward balance, this is essentially commitments that the CRA has made and how we're accounting for them to make sure that whatever we've passed under resolution, et cetera, previously is accounted for in budget, even if it's not spent right now.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, you can proceed, Ms. Justice.
All right, with that, I will ask Raphael to.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good to see you all. And I prepared what I will call a condensed version. However, if you would like more detail, I am more than happy to provide it this evening. So this is a preliminary presentation of the Downtown Development Authority's budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. And the timing of this is perfect. This goes to my board for further discussion and work next week, Tuesday, and then we'll probably lock it in and move into September where everything gets adopted officially. So just some quick considerations about how we built this budget. This past year in May, with all the changes that we have all undergone and seen and experienced in the past year, we thought it was the perfect opportunity to put our heads together as board and staff and have a workshop. We asked the community for feedback. We sat down all together and spent 4 hours just talking about what changes had happened in the past 18 months and what should we look to do and what role should the DDA play going forward. And with all that information that came out of that workshop, we built that into this budget process. And of course, as always, how responsive can we be to changing conditions in our community? Can we anticipate those needs? And I've said to your director, Mr. Rugg, and Mayor James, to you as well, I feel like the working relationship between the Downtown Development Authority, the city, and the CRA as a partnership is as good as it's ever been. It's fabulous. In my 15 years with the organization, I have to say, I feel like we're getting great things done. Just a quick review. The relationship between the DDA and the CRA is defined in an interlocal agreement, which is driven by a scope of work. Effectively, that's our 5-year work plan. We just re-upped that in 2020. And then the 4 focus areas of that work plan: enhancing the physical environment, marketing our district to visitors, investors, and business people, business development, as in hand-in-hand work with businesses to recruit new ones and support the ones that are already here, which was a major theme, obviously, of the past 12 months, and then improving residential quality of life. Oops. I love Venn diagrams. This describes how it all goes. So for the coming fiscal year, defined in green, there bracketed in the frame, our total budget, current year and coming year, the largest budget we've ever had, $8.5 million for the coming fiscal year. And then all the revenues below that are our 1 mil tax, our TIF payment to the CRA, that interlocal agreement return that Allison talked about. CRA, and by the way, we had a 7.5% increase in values. About $103 million of new projects came online, contributed to that, plus a small increase in assessed value. Something to note, CRA project funding, we agreed several years ago to whittle that down to 0. We've stood by that commitment. And you can see, again, looking back 5 years, we did this for our workshop. We thought it was important to do. Starting in 2016, 2017 fiscal year to current year. That top line is total budget. The difference here, significant difference here, is our average carry forwards for the previous 4 fiscal years have been about $1.6 million. But this happened. Unquestionably, we've been affected. Our operations have been seriously curtailed by COVID. We haven't been able to operate the trolley. We haven't been able to produce events, market those events, et cetera. So we are carrying forward an abnormally large amount of money. However, we have budgeted those dollars to have the most significant impact, and I anticipate that in a year or two, we'll be able to whittle that right back down to what our normal carry forward is. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this process, and Commissioner Warren, you asked about this, so I specifically built this into my presentation. So our fiscal year ends, like yours does, on September 30th. And between July, when we have our most accurate accounting for the beginning of July, and the end of our fiscal year, we'll spend about $1.3 million in operations. We'll also have to budget, before we get new money in, we're going to spend about that same amount of money for the first quarter of the next fiscal year. So those carry forward dollars that show here, whether we're looking at 2018, 2019, or 2019, 2020, that's an accounting number that stops on September 30th. But when we get to this point, we still have to operate for 3 more months before we get our revenues in. And we have to write a TIF check to the CRA per the Department of Revenue's law. It's DOR, correct? Right? Somebody's law. Statute 163 says we have to write you a check before we get our TIF back. So expenses between now and the end of the year is about $4.9 million in operations and TIF payment. We start to get money in December, but we don't know how much. So we have to be frugal and prudent and make sure we can write a $2.3 million check. So our projected fourth quarter of 2021, first quarter of 2022 is $2.7 million. Our fund balance as of July 1 was $5.4 million. Take that out, that leaves us with $2.7 million. And we have to write a roughly $2.3 million check. So we do have money coming in, but I want to make sure that we're lean. We run lean, and we always run lean. This is nothing new, but we always run lean. With the money we get in, we'll have probably 2 or 3 months of operating revenue buffer when we write this check. But we don't know what that number is until we get the check from the tax collector's office. So, getting into numbers and budget, we restructured between 2019 and 2020. This is important to note, in my opinion. We started calling things more accurately what they were. So you see this blue area here, that's neighborhood services. We lumped things into that category to call them more effectively what they were. Public realm maintenance over the years, and this you'll see why I'm getting to this. We've increased this over 200% since fiscal year 2017, 2018. This is what the community has asked us for, and this is what city staff and you all have said we need to be focused on, is clean, safe, and attractive in our downtown district. So getting into budget numbers, and I've summarized these. If you want details, I'm more than happy to go through every bit of it. In our public realm budget, we have $1.9 million budgeted this year. The vast majority of that, 80% of it, are tangible outcomes in the district. That's either cleaning, landscape maintenance, or pressure washing. Makes up 80% of those items. The other items, small capital projects line item, holiday lights, and signage updates. We know we're going to have to fix our trolley signs. We'd like to do some small expansions to our wayfinding program. Neighborhood services, obviously the big budget items here, 42% to trolley operations and 45% to our security ambassador program, and any contributions we make to policing, overtime, et cetera, is 87% of that budget. Other items coming in at single digits, public space programs, homeless outreach, that's the contribution we make to Marcus Laws and his team, Ali Severino, for the work they do in the district, residential programming, and community engagement projects. Think Cheryl Moriente, and things like Esperanza Day. Marketing and public relations, we have $1.5 million budgeted this year, slightly down from last year. We're anticipating launching a new brand, and we're anticipating working more closely with the Chamber and the BDB to do out-of-area recruitment for businesses. That's happening rapidly, but can we can we work on some targeted industries with Mr. Rug and his team? 45% are buys, that's advertising and or collateral materials. The rest of it, you can see where that goes. Happy to explain any of these in detail. I will point out community and cultural promotions. That's things like public art, the musical swings, the seesaws, the symphony in the Meyer Amphitheater, et cetera. Those are things that are attractive and marketable, but they're not necessarily advertising. Business development, just shy of $1 million this year. The big chunks here are facade improvements and property and business incentives. Those comprise 61% of our business development project. And then the other items, business partnerships. I'll give an example of that. That was us working with Gunster last year to provide legal advice to businesses in our district that were having a hard time with the PPP program. That yielded a tremendous impact for them. It's that types of partnerships. Our collaboration with 1909 in helping businesses adapt and evolve to, can they get an online interface up? Can they merchandise themselves better, et cetera? And then you'll see here 2 business training and supports. One has 12 for 12 on it. That's the grant dollars that were allocated to 314, which we have some remaining, and we have to budget them separately because they are obligated to a specific outcome. Total expenditures in the Downtown Development Authority's budget, $8.547 million, and you can see how it breaks down. $984,000 in business development, 1.9 in public realm maintenance, almost 1.9 in neighborhood services, $1.5 million for public relations and marketing, and operations at $1.3 million, and a small reserves. How it looks as a pie chart, I thought these were good summaries. You can tell me otherwise if they're not. 45% of the DDA's budget this year is to tangible outcomes in the public realm in one way or another. Trolley, security, cleaning, maintenance, and beautification projects. Opportunities that we're looking at this year, district-wide, we have budgeted to take on the waterfront as part of our litter removal program, and that will start most likely by October 1. If we can start it earlier, we will, but we're shooting for October 1st. And we're also focusing on edge areas. Now that we've gotten the core taken care of, we're looking at those entryways and gateway areas. Improving diversity and equity is high on our list of things that we need to accomplish and to help and to collaborate closely with the city on. Mobility, we're starting a 3-month pilot project with Circuit in October. Any ride, I'm sure you all know Circuit, the low-speed electric shuttle company. Any ride that begins or ends in the district is free. If you get on in Flamingo Park and get off in downtown, it's a free ride. If you get on in downtown and go to the breakers, it's a free ride. We're seeing how this works. We're going to get a lot of great data out of it. They're app-driven, and we're going to bring this back and report to the city on how this program worked and see what we can do to maybe keep it going. Some additional programs I would love to announce, but I can't yet. And then art in the form of sculptural and installation art that will be permanent or semi-permanent in the downtown. And then finally, collaborating with the Downtown Neighborhood Association, Cheryl Moriente with the DDA team has a great idea for placemaking grants where we empower folks in the community that live in downtown to come up with projects and programs to change the neighborhood for the better, obviously, to improve quality of life in the neighborhood. And then workshops or programs for the public. We've dusted off a tree plan that was done several years ago by Paradella Burgess, Jonathan Burgess, and we're looking at that as a collaboration with the DNA. And then ideally, it would be great if we could find a place for a dog park. Leah Rockwell joined us for a conversation on that. It's a big lift. It's a complex issue, but it's something we'd love to see happen if we can make it happen. And then finally, being in the mindset of budgeting, I'm sure we all know that the referendum was passed to establish minimum wage thresholds over the next several years. That starts on September 30th of this year, but by 2026, we're going to be looking at, I'm happy to hear that, a $15 minimum wage. And when we consider that roughly half of the DDA's budget is to contract services outside of our own personnel, this registers very high for us and things we need to look ahead at. So with that, I will end, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Mr. Clemente? Ms. Lambert, Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you, Raphael. Appreciate the presentation. Just a quick question about, I know you pointed out 87% of the neighborhood services budget was going towards policing and trolleys. I'm curious, and maybe this is part of the annual meeting that you have on Wednesday night, but if you have numbers or data, which I'm sure you do, showing the benefit of putting so much of the funding towards the policing in that area. I know that that was a big need, and I'm just wondering if we have tracked the progress that we've made in policing specifically, but then also curious about the trolley. I know that that's just gotten up and running now since COVID.
Yeah. Well, trolley ridership is bouncing right back. When they started at July 1, I believe, was the first day back up. People are definitely riding the trolley again. I saw some counts. I can't cite them off the top of my head, but I know they're strong. In fact, I rode around the first day with a news reporter, and on more than one occasion, we saw people clapping when the trolley went by, which is a good testimonial. In terms of the security program, we do track that. They use an app called Virtual Badge, and they report out any interaction they have, whether it's working hand in hand with the police on a homeless issue, a business contact. They stop in at condominiums and do check-ins on a regular basis. They do report all that, and it goes into an app called Virtual Badge. And I do intend, Commissioner, to show that at the Downtown Summit on Wednesday evening. I thought it might be a bit data heavy for tonight, but yes, we can definitely quantify the impact of these programs.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your partnership with the city and the CRA.
It's a pleasure, truly.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you all.
Justice, did you have any?
Mayor, Commissioners, nothing further on the budget presentation. We will be back the first meeting in September for final approval after we get some new taxable values and meet with the community if there's any changes on the proposed budget.
Very good, thank you. We do have one card on this item, Darren Studstill. Who? Chris, you wanted to say something before we get to comment?
No, that's okay. I'll mention it after Darren speaks.
Good afternoon, Darren Studstill, 401 North Rosemary. I guess my concern is just the process. I guess this is directed to you, Chris, as in we're in August now. What is the process of community input to the information and, getting that feedback? Will we still be able to make adjustments before September? I just wanted to know the process, because this is the first time I'm seeing the budget. I know I want to get with the community because I'm still not hearing things about where the $3 million that we gave to the sunset, where is it going, and did we lose? I know my interests are, business support and development, some of the trolley stops and stuff like that. I just want to know the process if we need to adjust some money from here, if you guys feel it valuable enough, and what that process look like, because I know time happens quick, and then after the fact we go, it's in the budget, and nothing can happen. So I just want to know what that process looks like. If we can answer that, just my concern.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, that's it. I just want to know when the
We'll
process.
have them address it.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Chris, do you want to?
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, Darren he actually beat me to the punch on what I was going to mention is
Okay.
that between now and September, related to the budget, what I do owe Mayor, yourself, and the commissioners is to spend some time, if you're so willing, to just spend a little bit more on the final details of the budget so that it is clear prior to final presentation. And as Darren has mentioned, that is one item that we haven't had a chance to do, which is a community outreach specifically to the historic Northwest on the budget as a specific talking item. However, what we have tried to do is, since we have been meeting with the community throughout the year, is to include the continued dialogue that we've heard from them on things of needing to address those basic needs such as lighting, cleanliness, just safety and security with the innovative policing. That's why we've, in addition to the police services, we've also included some technology purchases, as well as prioritizing the budgets. I know Ms. Teal in the neighborhood has been really vocal about needing to get those projects bumped up on the priority list, and we've put money in the budget to specifically address vacant lots so that we start getting some homes or projects built on those. So even though, Darren, you're right, we do owe you a community meeting on the budget, we have taken steps to ensure that what we've heard throughout the year is included and is funded for this coming fiscal year.
Okay, very good. Any other questions, Mr. Rue? Okay. All right, we need to hustle here.
I think we can hustle. The last remaining items should, they don't require too much detail. The one we did with the next agenda item, Mayor, does require a little bit of dialogue, but I think me and Sabile can wrap it up quickly.
All right, well, let's go to item 3 first, which is consent calendar. Can I get a motion on consent?
Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 4, resolution number 21-32, approving a project funding interlocal agreement between the City of West Palm Beach and the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for an amount not to exceed $20,000 for funding of the art installation entitled Natural Beauty at the 500 Passageway on Clematis Street.
Hello, Sibile Welter, Administrator of Public Art and Culture. I'm doing this one with Chris Roog. You want to start, Chris?
Sure. So real quickly, we're going to go over a handful of items. Next, Sabile. We'll do a brief overview. We'll do some site identifications. We are going to talk about the project, what's included in the resolution. Happy to answer any questions hopefully if we have time. So just as a basic overview, where we're talking about, this project is going to be located in the downtown, right down the street. So if you, just for site purposes, Banyan Boulevard, Clematis, you've got PD and City Hall. The parking garage is right between Quadrille and Rosemary. And the spot that we're talking about is the passageway right next to the garage. It's a view looking north. And so looking east, we are working on this connection with Banyan Boulevard. As you know, the street is under construction, and there's that pedestrian path that runs right along the the west side of the garage. And where the star is located is where we intend to put the art. And this idea that you'll have just a variety of folks and pets and all kinds of people interested in seeing the mural when it is put up, because this will be a main connection north and south along the garage. So Commissioner Schoaf, you had mentioned just some information, needing some information about site identification. So we did put together some info on that. So generally speaking, actually, I'm going to turn it over to Sabile so she could talk a little bit about the Art Life Master Plan.
So when we look at a site, we always do a site visit beforehand, which I did with Chris. And we look at sites, how the built environment exists, and how art can then be fabricated into community life, so it becomes a daily life thing. Obviously, public accessibility is key, and then we really go into the logistics of whether an art piece would work there or not. So there's a lot of before we get to what kind of art type would work in the space. And with this one, we were really looking at how the Art Life Strategic Plan and Master Plan works with the CRA Strategic Plan specific to the downtown area, and how we could make that and enhance the public realm. I'll send it to you.
Next.
So, and one of the things that we always do is citing is really significant. as you know, the Yinkashana Barrio is a perfect example of a perfect siting. It really opens up the space, it enhances the space, it energizes it, and that individual is able to have that experience in it. And so these are some of the things that we discuss. Not every public space works, so you really have to keep going back to it to decide whether that would be a good fit and whether it's needed at all. And in this case, for natural beauty, there was already connections being made. The city was already investing, the CRA was investing, and so it was a perfect opportunity to further put the investment in, this time in the form of art.
Next slide. And these are just a couple of examples of things that we identified in both sites. So energy has just been completed. That was done by Brian Woods, and that's on a building that we currently own, as well as there's lots of other murals in the area. And then, as Sabile has mentioned, Natural Beauty checks a lot of other items, with the pedestrian connection being on a parking garage that the city owns, so on and so forth. And it's also very visible from the public right away.
Also from people in cars. So coming up Banyan, it's going to be visible. People coming through the other way on Clematis, it will be visible.
And just an insight into some other areas that we're looking at. This is the 401 North Rosemary. This is actually Cityside Suites, the side of the building that looks onto 4th and Rosemary, which is a very popular place where folks gather and have public events. As well as on the north end, we've identified a couple of locations as you come north into Northwood that we also think would be great locations for public art that the private sector has also expressed some interest on. And this was just for the community's information. If anybody does have an idea, they can reach out two ways. One is through the CRA and just contacting one of us, and they could reach out to project managers, or they can they can reach out through Sabile with the Art Life as an unsolicited proposal.
And just so you know, I put this one particular art piece in here because this is a great example of the community coming to Art Life and saying, we'd love art in our neighborhood. And then saying, we'd love art in like specific areas because those are very publicly accessible areas. Then it was more of the idea of an art. It wasn't like, this is the artist, this is how much, it was more of a dialogue that happened, and I think that's really key when community members come, that we start a discussion.
So Natural Beauty has two parts. This is the art, which we'll talk more about at the City Commission meeting with the breakdown, the CRA funding approximately $20,000 for that. Next. And that is budgeted in the downtown district area. The second part is we are repurposing old traffic signs that were saved from when we did the streetscape at Clematis and Rosemary. Those were saved by Burkhart Construction, and those will be repurposed as wayfinding and repurposed in the areas that are where they will help with wayfinding. This is just a quick idea, so if you click it, you can see it up at the top. This is where we're repurposing that wayfinding, so if you light up the sign, the idea is that during the evenings as well as during the day, people will know that this is a north-south passageway in downtown. Next. So resolution is to fund this agreement for the public art not to exceed $20,000. It achieves several goals. Next. It achieves several goals, and this is just an idea that we're consistent with several plans and items that we're trying to advance in lots of different departments. So with that, staff recommends approval and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions, Commissioner Schoaf?
I'll just make my comments brief. I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to Anthony Burks on this installment. We've been admiring your works, at various places. You've been involved in the local art community and are a local North End resident. So excited to see your artwork up in our city. Congratulations.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 21-32.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, resolution number 21-38, approving a transferable development rights purchase and sale agreement between Linear Group LLC and the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for the sale of 26,723 square feet of transferable development rights from CRA properties located at 822 North Tamarind Avenue, 1031 North Sapodilla Avenue, 713 through 719 North Sapodilla Avenue, 604 8th Street, 825 North Rosemary Avenue, 800 Henrietta Avenue, 601 7th Street to 506 and 524 Daytona Street, West Palm Beach, Florida, for a total purchase price of $361,435.50.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Rob Traeger, the Real Estate Manager for the Community Redevelopment Agency. Resolution 21-38, TDR agreement between the CRA and Linear Group LLC, a development company out of Miami. So I'm just going to go through an overview of the setting sites, which are the sites we own, the receiving sites, which are the sites the developer owns, request, and a summary and recommendation. So the setting sites for this transaction totals 26,723 square feet. It includes the Heart and Soul Park, the 822 North Tamarind, 1031 North Sapodilla, and 713 through 719 North Sapodilla Avenue, which are the 3 historic buildings that we currently own. Total square footage of the receiving sites is the same, 26,723. The receiving site is 506 and 524 Daytona, which is a proposed 19-story multifamily and hotel development. And we are requesting that the board authorizes the execution of a TDR agreement and purchase agreement between West Palm Beach CRA and Linear Group totaling 26,723 square feet. Related to those properties located at 604 8th Street, 25 North Rosemary, 800 Henrietta Avenue, 601 7th Street, 822 North Tamarind, 1031 North Sapodilla Avenue, 713 through 719 North Sapodilla Avenue, totaling 26,723 square feet. The square footage rate is $13.50 a square foot, which equals $361,435.50.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 21-39.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll try to squeeze in item 6. Resolution number 21-39, approving a transferable development rights purchase and sale agreement between WPB Resident Interest LP and the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for the sale of transferable development rights from the CRA properties located at 604 8th Street, 609 8th Street, 825 North Rosemary Avenue, 800 Henrietta Avenue, 601 7th Street, 618 through 620 7th Street, 622 through 624 7th Street, 626 through 628 7th Street, and 630 to 634 7th Street to 370 and 375 Eucalyptus Street, West Palm Beach, Florida, for a total purchase price of $378,499.50.
So Resolution 21-39, a TDR agreement between the CRA and WPB Wrestling Interest LP. Again, go through an overview, setting sites, receiving sites, a request, and a recommendation. The setting sites are the Styx Promenade and Heart and Soul Park, totaling 28,037 square feet. The receiving site is 370 and 375 Eucalyptus, which is phase 2 of the Lofton Place multifamily development that currently exists. So the request is authorizing the execution of a TDR agreement between the CRA and WPB Wrestling Interest, totaling 28,037 square feet, related to the properties at 604 8th Street, 825 North Rosemary, 800 Henrietta, 601 7th Street, 609 8th Street, 618 through 20, 620 7th Street, 622 through 624 7th Street, 626 through 628 7th Street, and 630 through 634 7th Street, totaling 28,037 square feet. Again, the square footage rate is $13.50 a square foot, totaling $378,499.50. The recommendation is to move to consent and execute a purchase and sale agreement for this transaction.
Very good. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, move approval of resolution number 21-39.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Hope that was fast enough for you guys.
Well, we got one more to try to be, yeah, you're fast. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, item 7, resolution number 21-41, approving the First Amendment to the Property Development Agreement and Ground Lease with Immacore Ventures LLC for the development of the property known as the Anchor Site.
Mayor, Commissioners, Allison Justice again. I'm going to just real quick here. The anchor site amendment is some changes, really some Scrivener's changes within the amendment one. One, to the change of the development structure. They have secured equity partners. 2, clarifying timeframes. It was a 2-phase project. They're considering a 1-phase project, so we're just clarifying that within this amendment. And then some other provisions that we're clarifying in this amendment.
Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
if I
Rubin.
may, and also I spoke with the developer today. They plan to submit for site plan tomorrow.
Fantastic. Great
Yes,
news.
and the next timeline on after they submit, they have 12 months to get all of their approvals done. So that is their next deadline after.
Okay. Very good. Any questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, move approval of resolution number 21-41.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Justice. I adjourn the CRE meeting. We will reconvene as the City Commission at 5:03. Meeting adjourned. That's okay. That's okay.